You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Filmmaking Conversations with Damian Swaby. Listen to conversations with award-winning filmmakers, directors from the golden age of television, and creatives from the indie film community who continue to inspire the next generation of filmmakers. And now, over to your host, Damian Swaby.
Today on Filmmaking Conversations, I speak to Markou. Marcus is an independent filmmaker who successfully self-distributed his debut feature film, which he wrote and directed in 2013 by staging his own cinema release in the UK, achieving the second highest screen average of any movie in its opening weekend, only beaten by Oblivion with Tom Cruise with a PA budget of just £40,000. He used social media and guerrilla tactics such as cold calling every Greek Orthodox priest to announce the movie's release in the Sunday service before the opening weekend. The movie went on to be bought by Netflix, the BBC, and many worldwide territories. In 2014, he was nominated by the London Critics Circle Awards for Breakthrough British Filmmaker. His short films, Two Strangers Who Meet Five Times, 2017, and Office Song, 2019, have notched up over 100 festival screenings between them and over 20 award wins. For US listeners living in LA, he's bringing his new feature film, The Wife and Her Husband, to LA this summer. Check out the show notes and you can sign up for details of when the tickets go live for this feature film. You'll also be able to find out a lot more about Marcus, his films, and where to see them. Enjoy this episode of Filmmaking Conversations with me, your host, Damian Swaby.
Well, I came to London to study, and I actually always wanted to move to London. And even when I was growing up as a kid and growing up in the Midlands, I always had mates in London. I loved the energy of London. And I was coming down as a teenager because I had friends who lived in London. And I think I always made it, it was in my bones, right? I was moved to London. I remember visiting like Madame Tussauds when I was like a kid in the 70s. And, and seeing, Big Ben. And I just was absolutely, from a young age, fascinated by London. And it is a great city. So is Birmingham. Birmingham is a great city. I mean, they're only like 100 miles apart. But I think I just culturally, I just gravitate towards just London. I like the anonymity of London. And at the same time, I like the diversity, the cultural diversity of London. And actually, Birmingham is the same. Birmingham is a very culturally diverse city. So yeah, that's why. And London, obviously, because I came to study, and in terms of indie filmmaking as well, there were so many more opportunities in London. And I started off as a playwright. Actually, I used to write plays. So that's why it was London.
So a lot of people involved in indie film, they always love film, and everything they started off doing was involved in filming some measurable capacity. Why did you prefer being a playwright, and how did you go from being a playwright into becoming a filmmaker?
I was always a writer. Even when I was like a kid, I was a storyteller and I was a writer. And it was the only thing I was ever really good at when I was a kid. It was the first time I felt inspired, like the light bulb moment, that sense of your soul being engaged was when I wrote something as a 4-year-old and the teacher really liked it. And it was that acknowledgement from teachers and other people about my writing throughout and I'm dyslexic, so I'm not very good at grammar, and I'm not very technical in terms of grammar when I was a kid. But I loved storytelling, and I loved acting, and I loved being in plays. And I thought maybe I'd be an actor when I was a kid. But it was really, I think, every filmmaker is something else, right? I think Sidney Lumet says that in his book. on filmmaking. I think it's him that says it, that everyone is something else before they're a filmmaker. So, Scorsese's an editor. Some people have been actors like Robert Redford and Clint Eastwood, and some people come at it through writing. And actually, you look at all the great TV shows at the moment, they're all writer-led, which is really exciting to see. So it was really, I had an idea of myself being a writer, and the only thing I could envision or really see was there's no way I could make films, right? Because that was too technical, it was too expensive, it was too, I didn't understand it. I didn't know how you would get into that world. So I thought, well, theatre I knew as a kid, and I was very lucky at school to have done some amazing plays as a teenager. We did Bertolt Brecht, and I remember doing a Dario Fo play, Accidental Death of an Anarchist, which was about police corruption, and a brilliant Italian comedy. And we did Arthur Miller, A View from a Bridge. We did Shakespeare. I had this incredible exposure to these incredible playwrights. So as a teenager, I just thought, well, I'll just be a playwright. I love films. I loved films. I was film obsessive, but I never thought I would have the ability to make films because it seemed so far away. It seemed so I felt like you needed to be completely technical. But as a playwright, the beautiful thing about a playwright is you just need a stage and a script, and you can do it with one actor. One actor, stage, one spotlight, go. So I did a lot of improv as well over the years. I used to belong to a sort of theatre improv group where I loved the idea that you could create stories from nothing. So it was only I only went to film school when I got frustrated writing plays, because as a playwright, you have no control over what happens to your play. The director really, the theatre is a kind of director's. It should be more of a playwright's medium, but I found that I had no control over what was happening with my work, and I found that very frustrating. And someone said, "Why don't you go to film school?" And I was in my late 30s. And I thought, okay. I didn't make my first film till I was 40, and I thought there's no way I can go make a movie at this age. But actually, when you look at all the statistics of great filmmakers, and in fact, I've got an image, a GIF, or something I found on Twitter, and it was all the filmmakers, famous filmmakers, and how old they were when they made their first film. And I always quote, Ridley Scott was 40.
Excellent.
Steve McQueen, 39. Andrea Arnold, 45. It's like the list is endless. It's maybe it's an older person's medium. I know we have it in our heads that you've got to hit the ground running in your 20s, but actually I think filmmaking requires such a broad range of experience, and what that allowed me to do at 40 was bring all my previous experience as a playwright. I'd run a business for 20 years, so I knew how to manage people, and it was bringing all that experience, because when you're managing a film set, it is like running an enterprise, right? It's like running a whole business. Yeah. And it's not for the faint-hearted. I think you really do need, you're juggling so many different things and managing so many. It can be very easy for someone without that experience just to fold under the pressure. It's a high pressurized environment, which is why I think it suits people with experience, I think.
That's excellent. And I believe you're right. It's not for the faint-hearted. There's so many different departments, so many different personalities, so many different characters, so many different locations and deadlines to me.
It's an insane activity when you think about it as a filmmaker, as a director, because you really are like a managing director. You're like the MD or the CEO of a broad, because you've got to be able to engage a wardrobe designer with the same passion and interest, and you've got to have enough knowledge to know what you're doing. In the same way, you've got to engage with a DOP or a production designer, or the production manager that's scheduling. And you've got to be able to, in your head, hold the same story that's got to be translated to all these different departments. In other words, your job as the filmmaker, as the director, is effectively the facilitator for all these creative people to be telling the same story at the same time. And I think that requires a level of maturity that can only come through, experience. And I think humility, like the older you are, the more comfortable you can be holding your hand up and say, I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think? You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's giving other people the permission to explore their own potential and creativity. And so sometimes you find yourself as a filmmaker almost being like a therapist, and you say, okay, I hear you. What do you think is the best solution in this situation? And you might be given 2 or 3 options, and you might have some other opposing options coming from another department. And your job really as the filmmaker is to balance and weigh and go, let's do this. But often the solution is coming from other people, and you as the filmmaker, the facilitator and the judge and the kind of the one that says, this is the way we're going, go for it. And then it's all hands on deck. We're going down this path. So you do need, I think, to be ballsy enough to make big calls. Sometimes you get 5 people looking at you going, what should we do, Marcus? What should we do? And sometimes in that moment, you've only got, for example, right, when I made a film called Papadopoulos and Sons, I love the master shot. I love the master shot because if I can get everything in a master shot, I've got something organic and spontaneous, and it feels fresh, and I'm not cutting, and therefore I'm not like breaking up the kind of tone of a scene. Sometimes if I can get it in one single frame and in one shot, if the actors are sparring and overlapping on the dialogue if they have to, and it feels kind of naturalistic, there's also the economy of what you're doing is really good. But in Papadopoulos, sometimes the actors were not on cue, and so you as a director, you've only got like 2 or 3 hours to shoot a scene. They turn around to you and go, Marcus, we're never going to get this master shot, this 2 shot, for example. What do you want to do? You either have to move in now for close-ups, and then we'll save the scene in the edit, right? Or do you stay on the 2 shot and run the risk that we just won't get it because the actors are just dropping lines, they're missing stuff. So you have to have the balls. Now, most directors will go, right, we're going to play it safe. We're going to cut go in on the close-ups. I was like, we're going to get it. I just know we're going to get it. And it might be just at the very last take. Do you know what I mean? But everyone's nervous because they're thinking, wow, that was a ballsy call. We should have just gone in. But once you've got it, you've got some magic there. Sometimes you've got something really special and unique. So it's making those kind of calls that require, you need to have a bit of a gambler in you as well, I think.
But when you have to make these calls and you're in a situation where you're making other calls, time is tight, you're under pressure, you're stressed out, there are a lot of people on set, and there are a lot of people you're working with, as you said, the cinematographer, the people in wardrobe, etc. Who are the go-to people, or more importantly, the go-to person you have on set that you can lean on when times are hard?
I think there are the key people, and this is what I say to every first-time filmmaker, right? It's like the people that you're in a call, the film that's like in the heat of battle, right? In the heat of battle, right? This isn't about pre-production, right? This is like the people like who you are in the fight with are your first assistant director, your script supervisor, and your DOP and your sound recordist. Right, there's 4 people and you. Right. That's your these are your capos. Like, if you want to use kind of like mafia gangster terminology, these are the people that you are fighting with alongside. And it's really important that you are a tight unit, you 5. Okay. And I will always include the sound recordist in this because if you get those 4 people, like on the same page in war, anything is achievable on the day. You'll get anything, right? Against the odds. There might be a building site going off, but my sound recordist has come up with this solution where we're going to ADR it on set. I mean, the solutions we come up with are hilarious and brilliant and inventive. But so for me, it's like at the beginning of the day, it's get those 4 people talking. Like, let them know, what are we up against in war today? Because it is like a battle at times, right? You're fighting, especially independent filmmaking, where you're shooting on location and you've got no control over the environment that you're shooting in, right? And you've always got you're looking at the guy that's mowing the grass for the council. You've got a building site suddenly appeared which wasn't there a week ago, and the council promised that it was fine. You've got all sorts. You've got the light fading at some point. You've got the bad weather coming in against you, and your job is to keep everybody pumped, optimistic, like you're like a cheerleader, and you are also inspiring your team to deliver solutions against the odds and keep things light and keep them. I know you just said pressure, but it should be fun, even under pressure, right? We're not landing a plane in bad weather, right? And we've got 300 souls that we're making a movie that you can always find a solution. Like, even suddenly when you're like, we cannot shoot beyond this pavement, and your location manager is saying, I'm sorry, I am not letting you go beyond this pavement to shoot. And I desperately want to go into the square. Like, this happened on the recent movie. And I was like, can we just not happening. It's not happening. Right. DOP. Right. Where can we go? Well, the church that we've got has got a little ramp that goes up the side. We can stick the camera there. We can still get them walking across the square, and we can do this kind of long master shot where the camera is stationary and they're walking. And then once they turn onto the pavement, we cut, and then we just go handheld, and we've suddenly got an even better solution, an even better shot, just from basically the restrictions and the barriers becoming the opportunity. Does that make sense? It's like, if you get that into people's heads, the DOP's head, the sound recorder's head, they love it. They love the script supervisor, who's, for me, not just about, he picked up the glass with his left hand, put it down with his right hand. It's more than that. It's like, how are we going to cut this in the edit? How are we going to get this really sweetly cut in the edit? And sometimes we'll have this big debate where we'll be arguing that won't cut. It will cut. No, it won't cut for this reason. And suddenly it becomes this kind of philosophical discussion on set about why it will work philosophically, you know, like in logic terms, and why it might not work. And I'm always pushing the boundaries of what you can do with the camera. And obviously script supervisors often come in with a bit more conservative approach, because they want to make sure we don't look like idiots in the edit. So that's generally, you know, that's creating that atmosphere is key to successful filmmaking, in my opinion.
So do you work with a core group of people on your films? Because it sounds like the 4 members that you mentioned are so vitally important to you. If they do work and it all goes well, why change them?
Agreed. And I mean, the first DOP I ever worked with, who made my first short film and my first feature film, became just too successful.
Okay.
He ended up winning an Oscar this year. James Friend, he won the Oscar for cinematography for All Quiet on the Western Front. And he shot my very first short film, which was a student film, and Papadopoulos and Sons, my first feature.
Yeah.
And he's brilliant. He's just brilliant. And I was trying to get him again, and it was like no chance. He'd just off and away. But what I loved about James and what made him such a great DOP, and we learned so much from each other, actually, because I came from it from an improv perspective. So I was keen to throw away the shot list and get actors to block themselves. James is like, yes, 100%.
Wow.
Absolutely. Let's throw away the shot list. Let's get the actors blocking themselves on set, and then let's find the shot list on the day around, unless you've got an action sequence or something specific in your head where you go, I really want to do this kind of shot, and then you're shoehorning that in. But by and large, because I'm working in drama and comedy, and my genres are love stories and comedies, drama, right? And therefore, they have to be performance-led. So working with James was just a revelation, because he was like, yeah, let's do that. And it meant we could create the shot list around the performance of the actors. Now, when I lost James, when I lost him to bigger projects, and
you'll get him back.
No, no one is happier than me, right? Because he is brilliant. And it's like, I knew he would go where he got to even then, because he was constantly pushing for certain kinds of shots, because he was, at the time, this was in 2011, he wanted to be the youngest British Society of Cinematographer members. And he did get it. And you need a certain number of kind of shots in certain kind of movies. So it's really pushing me. Can we make this a night shot? I was like, why? Because I really want a night shot on my list. But when I lost James to bigger and better projects, and bless him, he's not just a talent, he's just a really, really great guy to work with. I found another DOP called Chris Ferguson, who I think is as talented as James. And I've done 3 things with him. I've done 2 short films and my last feature film, The Wife and Her Househusband, with Chris. And what I love about him is we shot The Wife and Her Househusband on one lens, handheld, and therefore he operated the camera, and therefore he is for me, the perfect cinematographer. And it allowed me as a director to stand behind him.
Oh, yes.
So I'm not sitting behind a monitor, and I did have the chance to have a monitor, like a handheld monitor, but sometimes I would just have the headphones and looking at his screen on his camera.
Yeah.
And that way I could, and I would say to my script supervisor, I don't want to be on the monitor. I don't want to be on the monitor. I want to be behind the camera and interacting with the actors, being really close to the actors, because sometimes I could call out something to the actors. I could, they might be expecting a cut, and I might be able to go, no, keep running, do this, do that. So we could just throw a bit of improv in there, and then Chris, because he's handheld, he's off the shoulder, he's one lens, he could do his thing. So that keeps it fresh. And it allows us to do some really interesting work that way, I think.
I completely understand. I've done that once myself, and it allows a different energy and pace and time and tone of everything when you're standing behind the DP who's handheld. But I must ask, what was the focal length of the lens on that camera?
It was 28 millimeters.
Okay.
It's kind of like, so it's pretty wide, right?
But a full frame camera, right? Oh,
4K, and we used
full frame. Was it a full frame?
full frame.
Yeah.
So no, we shot 2:1 ratio.
Okay.
But we used just the one. We never. Also, the advantage of one lens is you're not changing it, and therefore you're saving 5-10 minutes each time. And Chris has really pioneered this. And we work with the actors in rehearsal. Where I go, the camera's going to go really up close to you. Treat it like a third. I said to Chris, be like an actor in the scene. So if you feel the camera come right up to you, I mean, it had to get in close, right? Because it's so wide, right? You have to go in really close a lot of the time. But the actors could play off against that in a way. They would, if they felt it on themselves, they could just play with it, almost like theatre, right? And actually, Mark Commode, when he reviewed The Wife and Her Househusband, he saw it as almost like a criticism, but I think it's not. I think it's great that he said, well, it's like theatre. And I said, well, that's kind of what I was trying to go for. I wanted to make it feel like a theatre performance and feel like you were in the room with these people and feel like you were in a shared space with these characters. That's what I wanted, because it was just a two-hander, you see. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it doesn't work. You can't do it for everything. And my new project, I'm talking to Chris, like I'm on the phone going, Chris, I want to be able to do mixed classic framing with this kind of handheld sort of thing that we've started to develop over two film, or like a short and a feature. We've started to find this new language. And I rang him and I said, look, with the new project, I still want the realism. What handheld does like that, it just makes it feel more real. It gives it a realism. And it's interesting that Succession, the TV show, is shot like that.
Yeah,
and so many. I know they do these kind of punch in and outs to kind of jazz it up, but they're effectively doing handheld, aren't they? To convey to the audience that this is real. Like it's like the Murdoch family. It could be real. Yeah. It is real. And I think it works on that basis. And I don't think it gets the acknowledgement it should get because we don't notice it.
No, we don't. I mean? Oh, you and I might, and other people similar in that way.
We don't notice it's so good. It's so brilliant. And it's so in line with the tone of the story. It kind of matches the story that you don't notice it as you might if it was, this classically framed wide shot on a massive lens, with the sun rising at the sun, Do you know what I mean?
Completely, yeah. But you're an independent filmmaker who's had a lot of stuff out. And one of the hardest things for independent filmmakers to do is to get their work out to the masses. I mean, a lot of us have put our work on Vimeo or YouTube or certain independent platforms that distributors approach independent filmmakers for. But how do you get your stuff distributed, and where exactly does it go?
Well, I'm shameless publicist.
Great. Nothing shameless about being your own publicist in that way. No,
I do think I know a lot of filmmakers don't like that idea because that it involves having a kind of like my Twitter account is like my PR, the heart of my PR, and obviously my YouTube channel. And I know I just have a passion for selling it, and big studios do it right. I mean, why can't we compete with big studios on it's otherwise you're like doubly hamstrung. Big studios shamelessly will put huge posters, buses, they will spend
tube stations,
and they'll get their actors on Graham Norton, and they're all there talking about, they're not really saying much about themselves really, but they're just there to kind of push this film that they're currently in. And that's what we as independent films are up against. So to then say, well, actually, I've made a film and it should be good enough to stand on its own feet because I'm an artist, which is true, right? and artists feel very uncomfortable about publicity because it feels like you're selling, right? But the studios are doing it. They're doing that to the max. And what you're doing as an independent filmmaker is taking yourself completely out of the game by saying, I feel uncomfortable about it. You know, it's like, what hope have you got then? You've got to somehow get the world to see your film, because the chances of us getting into like the game-changing festivals like Berlin or Cannes or Venice without really big stars attached are it's harder now than it's ever been, actually.
I'm with you.
Now than it's ever been.
I don't know. I've from what I've read and heard, it's not even a case of maybe just having a big star. It's like, so who is your big name within the production? Like, who is your producer? Who is the writer and director? It has layers of kind of, I wouldn't say celebrity, but definitely a certain profile of people attached to getting into certain bigger festivals.
But, you know, I see some of these movies go to festivals and, you know, they bomb, right? Because they're not very good, but they ticked other boxes. You know, the right director, the right cast, the right story. And my view is, what I did with The Wife and Her Househusband recently was I thought, well, I can bypass all that. I'm just going to four-wall it. I'm going to hire the Prince Charles Cinema in central London for 3 weeks. I'm going to use my tax credit. So I made The Wife and Her Househusband for about 260. My budget was 280.
Okay.
And I saved 20, like in my war chest.
Nice one.
And then I thought, well, I'm going to get about 50, 60 grand back from the BFI for my tax credit. So suddenly I've got about 80 odd grand, right? As a little war chest. What am I going to do with that if I haven't got into Venice Film Festival? What can I do with my 80K that basically takes on a film festival and wins, right? So I thought, well, I'll four-wall it at the Prince Charles, right bang in the middle of central London. I'll hire the screen outright. And they were really, Greg, who runs it, by the way, is the nicest guy. I love him. He was like really unsure about it. Like, this is a film with no stars. It's got no big festivals. It's starting to do a couple of little festivals here, there, right? In fact, when I met Greg in the summer of 2022, no festivals had accepted my film because I was holding out for the big 5, 10. Yeah. You know, as we all do, right? Oh God, it's not happening, right? And what do? And it's got no PR. It's got no. I'm not really famous enough as a filmmaker, right, to justify this sort of thing. But when I met him and he met me, he couldn't wait to do it. He was like, "Okay, I'm with you." It was like he felt excited because he could feel my excitement about why I was doing it. And he went, let's do it. And he gave me a discount, which is what I really wanted, right? Off the full wall, right? I wanted,
nice.
You know, that's how that could be done. And then I started tweeting about it. And I was like, then I did it for £1, cinema for £1, right? Which, like, Little White Lies wrote about it, and Film Stories did a big 4-page spread. This is before I've even opened them. Yeah.
Right.
Before I've even opened the film, I'm like, would I have got this if I was at Venice or Berlin? No. I'm already winning. Yeah. I'm already winning. And I haven't even opened the film yet. Okay. Because I'm doing it for £1. Because in order to do it for £1, I had to four-wall it. I had to hire the screen. Yeah. Okay. So, and Greg, I'm sending these little things to Greg and Martin Myers, who helped me do the deal there, who's a cinema booker and a legend and one of the nicest people in the business. So any of your listeners want to hire cinema screens, they have to go to Martin Myers because he's the real deal. You know, he'll give you an indie film rate as well. He works with all the
Excellent.
big companies. But if you're indie, he's passionate about indie. So I'm already winning before I've even opened the movie and got reviews in. And then when we landed reviews in The Guardian and a couple of really interesting places, but the winner, the big winner, was Mark Commode, suddenly reviewing it for his show. And suddenly I'm thinking, this is what you might expect if you got into Berlin, but it's more because you're doing it outside of Berlin. You're doing it on your terms. And people now are looking towards you and going, okay, this guy not only isn't in Berlin, he hasn't got, I mean, they are incredible actors, Lawrence and Laura. They are just the best. I wouldn't swap them for anyone. But they're not Graham Norton sofa actors, right? They're not known yet, brackets, right? And so you're doing so much to push a movie, and you're doing it with a micro budget. It's not even low budget. It's under 300 grand. It's micro. and you're doing it with a two-hander, which is unusual in itself. So I thought, okay, this is success, right? Because what I've done as a filmmaker is I've gone, well, success normally is this route. This happens equals success, right? I have no access to that route. So what do? I have to create my own field of play, and I can win on my own field of play. And I think that's what independent filmmakers have always done. From the very, very beginning, they've basically, from the very beginning, independent filmmakers have gone, we're going to create our own field of play to win. And I notice behind you, you've got Do the Right Thing and Spike Lee.
Yeah.
And Spike Lee epitomizes that very idea.
Completely.
Right? Like, create your own field of play. I mean, the guy is, for me, one of the greatest indie filmmakers. And so I think all the great indie filmmakers have done that. They've basically gone, well, we'll change the rules and make them work for us rather than play someone else's rules. And who are the other? Who is the rules you're playing by normally are just set by studios and the system.
And it's the studios and a system that may not be for who you really are as an artist, or even
they're only interested in one thing. That's to make money.
Bottom line.
That's their sole interest. It's their sole interest. Quite rightly, they're borrowing. A lot of these studios borrow billions from hedge funds, right? Yeah. They've got to make money. Okay. But we are trying to create art, and they make uneasy bedfellows, those two ideas. And that's why you get these crazy clashes. But sometimes you get the alignment right. You get the alignment of art and the studio picture, and you end up with The Godfather, right? And, and you've got this kind of like Coppola, sort of great artist, and has this indie kind of DNA, right? And he's those crazy stories about how The Godfather got made, and how the studios did not want Marlon Brando at any cost. They're not having him. And then Coppola, filmed Marlon Brando getting into the character for The Godfather and filmed it and then played it front of the studios. And they were like, okay, we've got to have Marlon Brando play The Godfather. Brilliant. But that kind of thinking is an indie filmmaker once again changing the field of play. So you can get it right, and it has historically. You've got this balance, but lately the balance is out of kilter. It's out of sync. The studios have gone totally, like, crazily just for money, and they've ignored audiences, and they've ignored art, and they're paying the price for it, right? With superhero franchises like
Yeah.
dying on their ass.
Yeah, they certainly have. They paid for the price. They paid the price for it, and it's not good because how are you going to get people back involved in that sense? It sounds really bad, but often I think about going to the cinema. I used to have a Cineworld membership and things like that, but more often than not, I would end up watching Succession or something on the streaming platform, which is written really well, but it's not a part of me going to the cinema. And I think it might, I could be wrong, take me a while to get back to going to the cinema to watch a narrative film. But if it's a documentary, I'm more than likely going to go to a picture house somewhere and watch a doc. But hopefully that's not everyone.
I'm exactly the same as you in that we every Sunday, I got an 18-year-old and a 14-year-old, my wife, and we love movies. So we always have movie nights at my house. They're like, when are we going to do a movie night? And then we will like go, okay, well, let's see what's on at the Curzon in Kingston, because they've got these amazing massive seats and they bring you dinner, and you're like, I can kill two birds with one stone. I can feed my kids and watch a movie.
Yeah.
But every week we're like, we'll try anything. But we look at the list and go, oh, don't read the reviews. Let's just go with it. But there's nothing. There isn't the choice, right? And that's why the choice does exist on streamers, and I will get. We also have a pile of DVDs always sitting, right, on the thing.
I've got my DVDs too,
and we'll just put a movie on that way. A couple of weeks ago we watched the film Deep Cover with Lawrence Fishburne. Yeah. Oh my god! And I'd never seen it before, but it had kind of been recommended, and I said, kids, let's watch this, and with my wife, and we were blown away by it, and we just thought, there's no way a film like that would get made now. It just wouldn't.
It wouldn't.
But it's astonishingly good. You know, and you just think, why can't you make a movie like that? It's not like you don't even need. You might need tens of millions, but you don't need 50 to 100 million to make a movie like that.
No,
you know.
Yeah. But it's like we say, it's how the times have changed has unfortunately allowed for films like that not to be made. But you've had films made that have been showcased in America. Tell us about how that's happened. And I'm sure one of those films was shown in the cinema in the US.
Which one? Sorry?
You've had a film shown in the US in the cinema.
Oh, yes. I mean, with Papadopoulos and Sons, I self-distributed that. And I ended up doing it in cinemas with a kind of cinema on demand platform called Gather. This was a few years ago, where effectively you get a cinema captain to build an audience for you, and then they trigger the screening that way. And I'm now about to take my new film, The Wife and Her Househusband, to the States this summer. I'm starting it in 3 cinemas in LA for 1 week, and that's very exciting. I think the opportunity, actually America presents more interesting opportunities for indie filmmakers than in the UK. We're just not geared up for it in the way that the Americans are. Firstly, it's a lot cheaper to do. They welcome it. It's part of their system that indie filmmakers will forewall and get things going that way. It's in their culture, Kevin Smith, John Cassavetes, there's
his book the other day.
You just go back through time, right? And it's deeply embedded in American culture to do it that way. So it was, for me, like half the price to go into 3 screens in Los Angeles, Santa Monica, North Hollywood, Glendale this August, and to screen 3 times a day, full price. I'm not doing it for $1 because they just thought they weren't keen on that idea. They were like, you don't want to do that, Marcus. And I think it's and that gives you a chance to get like the LA Times maybe, or other critics, sort of Rotten Tomatoes critics, to kind of come in and check it out. And And for me, I like it because I can take a film that's already played in the UK. Like, this is the other thing I would say to your listeners, right? It's like we're really obsessed by doing that deal. Like, where's it going to go? Are we going to go on Netflix? Are we going to sell to Apple? Are we, where's our deal? It's like, take your time, right? Use theatrical. Make theatrical part of your plan. Make your theatrical release part of your plan. When you're building a budget for your indie film, whether it's like a micro budget under 50 grand, micro budget under 300 grand, or if let's say you're shooting a bigger movie, and actually there's all the data says the films that really struggle between 1 million and 3 million, that's like the difficult zone to make money. But anything under 500,000 has more chance of recouping, even without big names, right? In fact, more chance of recouping without big names than a movie that's cost you 2 million that's got a biggish name, but they're not big enough to carry your movie. Yeah, right. So for me, and what I'm always stressing to other independent filmmakers is push your theatrical. Take your time. I did screen for Wife and Her Househusband this March. I was in London for 3 weeks. Then I went to Birmingham for a week. Then I went to Bristol for a week. And I've had interest from distributors saying, can we get you on the digital platforms? Can we do a deal?
Excellent.
And I'm like, well, not yet. And I'm like, what do you mean not yet? I want to go take it to LA for a week.
Yeah.
And then if it's successful in LA, I might take it to New York for a week. And then I might take it to Chicago for a week. And each time I'm doing that, I'm getting reviews, press, and audiences. Letterbox reviews start to grow. Quality, Rotten Tomatoes, standard reviewers start to come on board. You know, you get to tweet that, put it in your promotion. You start building up this body of PR that says, this is even if you don't see the film, right? Even if it's like, I don't want to see a film about a couple breaking up. It's that's not my film, right? Not my cup of tea. But people have heard about it. They've heard it. They know of it now. It's the breakup movie, the micro budget that Mark Commode was talking about that was self-distributed for £1. I saw a piece here. I saw a tweet there. I heard about it. It's like, this goes back to the beginning of our conversation, Damien, when I said, when it's like, what have you got to do to compete with studios, right? It's not enough just to make your movie. I'm doing all of this on a shoestring for pennies, but I'm creating enough value and PR value in this movie so that by the time it does go onto a digital platform, I'm in a better position to negotiate a better deal for it. And I've secured its future. Papadopoulos and Sons, my debut feature, is on BBC iPlayer right now. It's a film no one wanted. And that film was made nearly 10 years ago.
Wow.
And it's on BBC iPlayer now, and it's going to be on BBC iPlayer till 2030.
Wow.
A film no one wanted. There were sales agents that walked out after 10 minutes, and I blogged about it. I won't mention the agency that did that, the sales agency that did that. But they walked out after 10 minutes in the industry screening and slammed the door. And that was in 2013, right? 10 years later, the film they didn't even give it more than 10 minutes is on BBC iPlayer, and it's going to be on there for another 10 years. What does that person think when they see it on there?
Yeah. I would love to know what they honestly think. Yeah.
Well, I think they ignore it. I've come across a lot of people that said, "Oh, Marcus, people hate you in the film business." And I said, "But they've never met me, right?" Yeah. And then I meet some people who were really cynical about me, and they go, "Oh, you're really nice." I went, "Yeah, I am actually. I'm not a monster. I'm just doing right. I'm giving my film the best chance." Why is that to be looked down on? Because I'm not a studio.
I was about to say that, yeah.
Because I'm doing it like it's so that I'm doing it in the best way. I'm doing it with little money. I'm hustling. I'm doing guerrilla marketing. I'm doing it in the best possible way, and I'm getting stick for that because I'm not a studio. So people go, "Oh, it's vanity. Oh, it must be vanity." Well, there's nothing more vain, right? There's nothing vainer than a studio spending 100, 200 million pounds on a movie and then spending like another 100 marketing it and only getting 50 at the box office.
Yeah.
Is there anything more vanity than that? Like, why are you accusing me of being a vanity producer, distributor, independent filmmaker? And that's why when Mark Commode, like, this is why we thank people like Mark, or when The Guardian reviewed it, or when the BBC bought Papadopoulos and Sons. Like, when Papadopoulos and Sons came out, I suspect the person that walked out after 10 minutes in the industry screening was like, vanity. Who does he think he is to write, direct, produce, and now distribute his movie? Who the F does he think he is? I'm storming out, slamming the door, but it's on iPlayer and it's got a huge fan base and it's some people's favorite film.
Good on you, man. Good on you. I've never heard of the BBC, for example, especially approaching an indie filmmaker in that way and having a deal for that length of time. A lot of the time, it's a case of
because I approached them, Damien, because it did its 3 years. It did its 3-year deal, and it lapsed. So I spoke to the sales agent I work with, and I could do a whole podcast on how you should work with sales agents, and because they just effectively work for me, and they just get a commission on the deal. So I still own the film. I said, "Can you approach the BBC again?" And they said, "No, Marcus, it's done its 3 years. It's finished." I said, "Well, okay, let me approach them because I need a home for this film. I don't want it to die. I need a library for it." Yeah. Okay. And I approached them and I said, "Do you want it for free?" To the BBC acquisitions person. And I said, "Look, it's a really important film because it documents Greek Cypriot life in this country. And, you know, the only other Papadopoulos we've got is the guy that runs the laundrette in EastEnders, and we never see him, Mr. Papadopoulos, right?" So, but she liked the film anyway. And Stephen Delaney is great in it, right? So she said, "I can't take it for free, Mark, because I have to buy it off you. I can't. The BBC cannot just take a film for free."
Yeah.
So we did a deal. So I sold it again, you know, and but sold it for 10 years. And then, because it was like, I said, "How long can it be on iPlayer for?" He said, "Well, normally most producers only want it on for 2 weeks."
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, that's the producer, not the BBC. That's the producer saying, "Oh, if you want it more than 2 weeks, you've got to pay us more." And the BBC won't pay more. So I said, "How long can I have it on for?" She said, "You can have it up to a year after it's been played once." So I said, "Well, can we do that?" She said, "Are you sure?" I mean, yeah, because it's like it's there, always there in British films. It's in comedies. Yeah. It's always there. And so the contract I did with the BBC was they play it once a year, and then it stays on the iPlayer for a year. And I did that for 10 years.
Gosh, good on you, man. You got a great spirit, great go-getter, because a lot of the times I think people would approach their sales agent, and once the sales agent has their say, maybe I'm wrong, a lot of people would think, well, the sales agent might know best. But you took a departure from what the sales agent said and moved forward and proved him wrong and you know, got an incredible deal. But how would you advise people to move forward with sales agents that are listening to the podcast?
Well, I would say, does your sales agent, do they love your film like beyond it being a commercial product that sits in a stable of products? Do they resonate with your movie? Did they go, "I love that film and it might not be commercial and it doesn't have the easy sell"? Like, it's like they're like estate agents, aren't they? Sales agents. Yeah. No disrespect, but they just want an easy sell. Like, no offense, any estate agent could sell a £5 million house in Wimbledon Village.
Certainly.
Do you know what I mean? It sells
Yeah.
itself, right? And sales agents are like estate agents. They go, oh, I want to, has it got Brad Pitt and George Clooney in? I can sell that. Guess what? I could sell that like I can sell the £5 million house in Wimbledon because it sells itself. So they all want an easy sell. Everyone wants an easy sell, right? So what you don't want, and the problem is, right, we go to these sales agents, and there'll be sales agents listening to this who'll probably hate me for it, and they'll be internally, a little bit upset, and some will smile at it because they know it's true. But because actually I love the good sales agents. There are some amazing sales agents out there. They're a bit crazy. They're maverick. They're like the estate agent that walks into your house and goes, I just love this house. I know it's not the £5 million house in Wimbledon Village, but I love its character. I love its spirit. And I love you, the homeowners of this house. And I love your family. And I want to do well for you because I want to help you get your next move, right? Because in life, those people exist. They're a bit maverick. They pop up all over, right? They pop up at school, that maverick teacher that was like, genuinely cared and wanted you to succeed and gave you those little magic insights that inspired you. Yeah. Right. And they're kind of like, if you can find a sales, and they do exist, find a sales agent that believes in you, believes in your film, even if it means they don't make money, even if it means it's not the easy sell, but they go, do you know what? I feel aligned with this person, with this filmmaker, and I genuinely want to help them because I really love their film, even though it's not obviously commercial like the Wimbledon £5 million house that sells itself. Does that make sense? Completely. So the advice I give to your listeners is you need to get in a room with people. Stop trying to think this through logically in a way. You kind of do this when you cast a movie, and you do it when you make the movie. You've got to go with an inner feeling that says, okay, this person really believes in what I'm trying to do. That's always the way forward in business as well. It's like finding an alignment with people that really like are aligned with you, because everything else is like, it's just theory, isn't it? It's just theory.
Yeah. That's excellent.
In theory, we can sell this film in 15 different in 15 territories, and I think I can get 20 grand in Germany, 30 grand in Belgium. It's just theory.
Yeah. But that is important. Aligned with you. I love that. And they have to love the film as well.
Yeah. I mean, there are some top sales agents that are that can get almost as close to their, like, like if they think it can do, like they're more. Look, there are some really good. If you've got a certain kind of cast, right? That's the point of a cast. If you can be more quite scientific about what it's worth in certain territories, right? But at independent levels, at low to micro budget, I don't think you're going to be talking to that kind of sales agent that can go, do you know what? With this cast, I know I'm going to do 80 grand in Germany, 70 grand in France, 80 grand in Japan, and I'm 90% sure I can do those numbers. They're very rare, those sales agents. But you need a kind of cast that's going to open those sorts of doors. At our level, you've kind of got to... At our level, I would always argue that you've got to be your own sales agent.
Yeah.
Like,
you got to be.
Like, if you've got some named cast, then you're at a different scale. But if you've got no named cast, right, then I would always argue you become your own sales agent by effectively doing this. go for a theatrical, any kind of theatrical, get your audience in to see it, and then do your own digital deal, do your own direct digital deal, whether it's through someone like Film Hub. I don't know if you know about Film Hub, or Rights Booster. You can approach Rights Booster Direct, which is a British company, and you can get them on board, and you can create your own kind of buzz, create your own marketing like buzz. I've done that a lot through Twitter, where I'm like cutting all my good reviews, making a quick little video, and then what I'll do is I will target in Twitter's advertising sort of back end. I'll target certain kind of like audiences to build PR, and I can do that very cheaply, like really cheaply, relatively cheaply. I'm not spending money on posters on the underground,
which is insane amounts of money. I understand.
And you're just throwing mud at the wall. What you want, like when I did Papadopoulos and Sons, this was like before everyone latched onto Facebook. I was doing this in 2013, where I opened Papadopoulos in like 10 screens across the country. I would geo-target a cinema. I'd say 3-mile radius of the cinema in Brighton, target, and I'll give the kind of what I want to target. Anyone whose Facebook profile contains Greek, Greece, Cyprus, Greek music, Greek food, Zorba the Greek, Anthony Quinn. It's just like I just did this crazy list, and I could spend 500 quid promoting the trailer to just everyone within a 3-mile radius of these cinemas, and bang, I would be like 500 quid. I mean, that wouldn't even. What would that get you? It wouldn't even get you. It wouldn't even get you.
Nothing. You can't think of anything.
And that was the point. It's like digital. I was doing that in 2013, and that's how I was competing. I think there was a film that came out called All Things to All Men, and it had a really great cast, and it was like a thriller. And I remember The Guardian wrote about me and Papadopoulos and Sons and All Things to All Men. I think it was called that. It was like a thriller. And they said their budget was $1 million, like $1 million. And in my opening weekend with Papadopoulos and Sons, I did, and they were in 100 screens. And I was only I was in 12 screens, right? I did double the numbers in 12 screens, double than this film did in 100 screens with $1 million. And I did it with £40,000. That's how I became a distribution case study.
Of course, you have to be.
Because and they were like, what the hell's going on? So I used to talk at Microwave in Film London's Microwave for I was there like 5, 6, 7 years every year, and I was saying, have you not found anyone yet to replace me? Because this story is getting old, and I'm painfully aware it's getting old. But the principles are still the same, aren't they? Know who your audience is and target them digitally, as well as other stuff. Like I would hand flyers out at Coco Camden when there was a Greek singer would be there one night from Cyprus, and really popular, and I'd just be flyering everyone as they're coming out. These same people would hear me on London Greek Radio doing an ad campaign, which I just did for not much money. And then they'd also be getting hit on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. And I remember these people coming out sometimes saying, I'd be like, come and see my film. I'm Marcus Markou, I'm the filmmaker. Come and see my film. And they went, you're not the Marcus Markou who's on the London Greek Radio, which we hate, by the way, because it's 10 spots a day. I went, I am the same man. And they went, you're not. I went, I am. I'm the guy that does the ad. Their minds were blown that this advert that we're hearing on London Greek Radio with me talking about my film, they were now getting flyed by the same guy as they were walking out. And they would also say, I've seen your YouTube ads and you're all over Facebook.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's the same principle. It's like, why wouldn't you give your film the best chance, right, to find its audience? Because Damien, we're bombarded by 100, 200 choices. You can put your PlayStation 5 on, and you've got a massive menu of games.
Yeah.
There's hundreds of films you can watch on Netflix, Disney, Amazon
Paramount.
Prime. There's
Everything. Yeah. Apple. Marcus,
So-
your work rate and talent and enthusiasm and passion, I can honestly say live on this podcast, is unmatched by any British filmmaker I have ever spoken to.
Stop it, Damien. You say
I'm
that to
being honest.
everybody.
No, there's all the episodes are out there for anyone or everyone to listen to. They're all recorded. They're all out there. And this is going out live, so I can't even edit it out.
Oh,
I give
it's a good
credit
job
where-
I haven't, said anything too controversial.
No, I would. I knew you wouldn't. I know you would. I'm sorry. I thought you was aware it was live, but
I do know it's live.
okay.
But you know, I just thought I forgot. I got so sucked into our conversation. It just became the conversation, didn't it? And I just completely forgot we were doing a live show.
It's all right. It's fine. But we're gonna have to call it a day here tonight. I've got
That's
another
fine.
guest coming up soon, and I really appreciate speaking to you. I hope we can speak more in the future. But lastly, just before we go, if
Yes.
someone wants to go and watch one of your films, other than the one on BBC iPlayer, where do they go, and which one would you recommend?
Well, you can watch, because it's only 12 minutes. Go watch Two Strangers Who Meet 5 Times on YouTube. It's a short film I made that's over 3 million views now. I'm really proud of it, and it's only 12 minutes. And that way, I'm not trying to sort of make you commit to anything huge at this stage. And if you like that, then you can gravitate to one of the feature films.
Excellent. I love it. And guys, Marcus hasn't said so, but he is going to send me links to his work and his website and everything, so I can put it in the show notes, so you can just go and click and look at the links on the podcast when it's up on Apple and Spotify and everywhere else you can find good podcasts, I would say. And I hope you enjoy watching and reading the links and looking at his website and everything else, because as you can tell, Marcus is a serious, talented, passionate, enthusiastic guy about film. And I think it's fair to say we can all learn a lot from him. Marcus,
Thank you. That's
thanks so
very
much for
kind.
coming on.
That's very kind. Thank you, Damien. Thank you.
Have you thought of upgrading your cinematography game? Would you like to have an ASC cinematographer mentor you for free? Join veteran cinematographer Suki Medenzovic, ASC, Disney, Pixar, FX Networks, Netflix, American Horror Story. As he teaches you how to create beautiful images using 3 lighting techniques he has mastered on film sets over his 30-plus years in the film industry. Each technique uses basic, low-cost lighting equipment so that anyone can achieve beautiful visuals no matter your project's budget. If you want to take your cinematography to the next level, visit filmmakingconversations.com to sign up for instant access.